I would like to introduce Karina Jensen. And Karina is the practice director at the Center for Leadership and Effective Organizations, a professor of global innovation and leadership at the Neoma Business School in France. She's the founder and managing director of the Global Minds Network, a consulting and training firm. She's an international management consultant, change facilitator, and educator with over 20 years of experience, and she's my friend. She's originally from San Francisco, California, and she earned her PhD in international management at ESCP Business School in Paris, and she is in Paris right now. Welcome, Karina.
Thank you, Kim, for the introduction, and it's a great pleasure to be here to present for the ISO DC webinar and share my insights on the book Leading Global Innovation. And I'll start with a story that you'll find as a typical story that you'll find throughout the book and from my research that I've seen in the field, from my consulting, corporate, and research work. And the story goes like this. Very typically, you'll see the VP who's getting ready to launch a big initiative. It may be a product or service, a new concept that's going to really be critical for the firm's success. And this multinational firm is based in most countries and regions around the world. So the global VP of strategy is looking at, well, how do I assemble all my teams? How will I make sure I have a concept that's going to really be a big success in the marketplace? So typically the global VP assembles the teams at headquarters, spends a few days in the war room putting together the vision, the strategy, and the plan. What are we going to do for marketing and sales around the world? And then rolls that out to the world and looks at how we can, and then looks at the local markets and how they are planning. So we'll roll that out to the world. And what happens is that the teams in Europe and Asia are not quite that excited, and the teams in the Americas, they're not very excited either. They're actually a bit upset at this, and what's happened. So you'll see that Europeans may be very vocal. You know, the Italians are going, "Mamma mia, what is this?" And the Germans like, "Ah," they're scratching their heads, and French like "n'importe quoi." And in Asia, more polite reception. Thank you for, the plan, arigato, but they put it away. They feel this is not going to be that much use in my market, so they put it in their desk drawer. Mm-hmm. And in the North America or South America, more vocal as well, and wondering, okay, let's create our own game plan. So what's going on here is the global VP is really at a desperate point now, because this new concept out to market quickly ahead of the competition and make it a success around the world. However, the teams aren't supporting this, and as a result, you have slowdowns and delays and a concept that may not be that suitable to local markets. And as a result, sales plummet. Customers are not that satisfied or excited, and the company really doesn't earn or enjoy that success that they wanted.
And Dr. Jensen, I want to let you know or welcome those who are continuing to join us. We have had some joiners, so I want to welcome you. And if you have any questions, please post them in the chat room, and we will address those later in the webinar. So welcome. And is this what caused you to write the book? I have a question. Is this what caused you to write?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
That was a big incentive, because I was seeing in my past my corporate career and in consulting and that there were these great challenges that companies were really having challenges collaborating on innovative new concepts, and as a result were not doing that well in the marketplace. They didn't have the support around. And so I thought there's problem, we need a solution. So that was the incentive, is to go out there and research and spend time in the field and find a solution.
Awesome.
And it's so important today, as we see, because the world is more global, it's multicultural, it's digitally connected, and customers around the world now really have higher expectations, and they want to see more value in how we link to their markets. We do have to really improve in how can we create valuable solutions that for both people and the planet today, because we do have big challenges that we need to solve. And so the heroes or heroines in this story, and the actors are really you, the audience, and helping the organization look at how can we be more globally ready. So you're in this and looking at how can I prepare my organization and ensure global readiness so that we can connect to employees and customers around the world and enjoy success. And so some of you may be global project and team leaders, and you may be heading a new initiative going international. And so you need to look at, well, how am I going to ensure that I have that support around the world? How can I work with the executive team? How can I ensure that my teams are really engaged, and both across functions and cultures? Or you may be an executive who wants to ensure that the organization is really supportive, and you're ensured that all the teams around the world are engaged. Or you may have the role of international HR and OD, guiding the organization, looking at what is the shift we need to make? How can we ensure global innovation readiness? What is needed in terms of developing the organization and aligning all the teams? Or you have the role of a world educator and trainer. You're really looking at how can we ensure the skills and skill set and the mindset of our teams around the world, as well as our leaders within the organization. So all of you have a role to play in these stories and the global journey. And what's important there is to look at how can we bring this together in our new world, so to speak. Again, that's multicultural and networked around the world. And what, again, is very important is to ensure voices are heard from teams around the world, that we can optimize that collective intelligence and truly create valuable solutions for people and the planet. The research, a lot of studies around the new competencies and who are being critical that organizations and leaders need to step up their game. Looking at the most recent study is MIT Sloan Management Review of the Future of Leadership Global Executive Study, where only 12% of the participants strongly agree that their leaders have the mindsets needed to economy. And Deloitte has come up with a study in the past that looks at how are we going to develop leaders who can truly empower diverse teams around the world, especially a younger generation. And you also have DDI that's shown over the years the importance of developing global leaders who can truly lead across cultures, across generations, and also foster employee creativity and innovation. So we look at these needs, clearly a need to develop our leaders and teams around the world, ensure organization is ready for global innovation and collaboration. It also impacts performance. It's critical for organizations to facilitate global innovation and multicultural collaboration in order to ensure higher market performance for concept design, strategic planning, marketing, operations, customer connection, and global sales. And internally, the big challenge here is looking at how to ensure that teams around the world are prepared. And what I found through my research are the biggest challenges revolve around trust building, first of all, no surprise, ensuring that the teams have trust in their leadership and that they are motivated and engaged. that they can participate and truly contribute value to the project, and that their voices are heard, that there's a dialogue where they can share their ideas and knowledge, and also to ensure that leaders can ensure that there's an understanding and support of that global strategy, as we saw in the story. Because my question has therefore been, how do you facilitate global innovation and multicultural collaboration? Since I've observed these challenges in the field, working in corporate as well as in consulting, and now the last decade through my research, I've wanted to see how can we improve, how can we develop better skills and capabilities to facilitate global innovation and facilitate collaboration. So as a result, over the years, I've performed international studies of over 200 global project leaders at 45 multinationals with HQ in Europe, Asia, North America to look at similarities and differences, and as well as taken a closer look at Asia, a local study in Asia with 40 regional managers. And the research continues, and what I will share with you here is what is in the book in Leading Global Innovation, these studies, and in addition to many cases and examples and tips.
I love all the cases.
And Leading Global Innovation presents a framework as a result and shows what are the success levers that you need to think about, because as we've become a team-driven, project-driven organization, global network, you have to think about the cycle. How is the leader, how are you leading and managing through the cycle from the time you create a new concept or solution to the time you bring it to market? So it's continuous, moving from concept to planning to validation and to the market. And so there are three success levers that I found in researching these organizations and talking to leaders. One is vision. Ensuring that you have a true vision that is inclusive, that encompasses your multicultural workforce, and involves leaders who truly understand the importance of inclusive leadership, and a strategy that employs that through strategic co-creation. And in doing so, dialogue becomes very important. That's the second lever, looking at how leaders can facilitate knowledge sharing, cultural learning in order to ensure that you optimize that collective intelligence throughout your organization. And that shapes the space, the third lever, which is about creating a global innovation culture and team climate that can thrive and ensure continuous innovation and collaboration. Closer look, I'll bring you through these three success levers, and we'll start with vision, leadership and strategy, how to create a global yet inclusive vision through the right type of leadership or through an inclusive leadership, and focus on strategic co-creation. And we'll start with the global leadership journey, and looks what many leaders are facing today and in your own development, looking at, first of all, your core foundation, and looking at your leadership ethos. You may support different leadership models, so from transformational to transactional. There are many leadership models that are value-based, trust-based, to servant-based. So we all create our own leadership ethos. However, as we work through global projects, global assignments, we find that there are different cultural perspectives. And this is where cultural dimensions come in too, which is well known and is wonderful for creating awareness, looking at culture in terms of country scales, differences between countries, from time to relationship and task, and many other dimensions. These are great for creating initial awareness and for fixed teams in the long term, as well as expat assignments. However, in today's very dynamic and team-driven, project-driven setting, we also need to look at interaction. So this is where cultural interactions come into play, such as global mindset or cultural intelligence and others, and looking at how we can adapt our behaviors and being more mindful and being more attentive and responsive. And so these models help us create a better understanding and respond. However, they still don't explain how that applies to certain contexts, especially within global innovation. How does that apply to a leader or a team who needs to lead an initiative and implement an initiative around the world? And this is where global leaders become knowledge facilitators, and more leaders who are initiating new concepts, new projects, products or services, programs, and which is really core of an organization. What I've found in my research is that their behaviors need to adapt to the cycle of a global project. And more leaders need to pay attention to the beginning phase in terms of creation, the development, the discovery of a new concept. Leaders need to employ more empowering behaviors and inviting local teams to present their ideas, to share more knowledge, to co-create with the leader. And so this book explores more of those behaviors, and then moving into the next phase of strategic planning and really creating a business case. There's the inclusive behavior, where the leader needs to integrate knowledge and invite different experts around the world and tap into the local knowledge of the teams to ensure a sound strategy that will apply to diverse international markets. And that leads to the validation phase, where the leader will need to think more about decisive behaviors, analytical and integrative, looking at what are the critical data and knowledge that are important to validating a concept as well as a strategy, and creating a very strong business case. And then we move, once that has been completed, we move to the final phase, which is execution, go-to-market, and development and go-to-market, which demands communicative behaviors from the leader, looking at how to consistently tap into communication and knowledge sharing across the organization, across geographies. So looking at how to translate that into diverse languages and stay close to the market and the customers, and sharing knowledge consistently in order to ensure effective execution and high global team performance.
So Karina, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So when going into a new country, what are the first things a company or professional should do? So what you're saying here is creating that vision. Is that the first thing that they should work to do?
Yeah, very important is to create that common vision. Okay. And spend time with the local teams or the teams around the world, and present the vision and the initial ideas, and collaborate with them and get their feedback and their thoughts.
So co-creating that vision.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Awesome.
Very. It's often forgotten, surprisingly, and in terms of the story from the beginning, often it's assumed, oh well, we'll take care of this. Everybody will follow. Right. So that's an important step, and that really leads nicely into this next slide, or looking at that context. I'm showing you the innovation context of moving from concept to market, looking at front-end innovation where there's discovery and creation of new ideas, and building the business case, the strategy, and then validating that strategy and the concept, and then moving to market to develop the concept or solution, and then preparing it for launch, where you want to be ready with marketing and sales. Now, going back to front-end innovation, why multicultural collaboration is so critical here, and what we refer to in terms of strategic cohesion is that all that knowledge in the marketplace, the valuable cultural knowledge in terms of customer preferences, local practices, local competition, different needs, all of that takes place during that front end phase of innovation. So it's so important to collaborate and understand and communicate and share that knowledge with your local teams around the world, so you truly understand what's important for those markets. However, in my research, I found that that's not as common as we would think. And yes, there's almost full collaboration across the world for execution. The leaders need their teams, their local teams in marketing and sales, and ensuring that they can be successful in those markets. However, they're less involved in the ideation phase and developing that concept that's going to be so important for their markets, as well as strategic planning and validation a bit more involved. And this is something that leaders and organizations need to think and really pay attention to, and how to involve the world. And what I found in some of the success stories that I share in the book is for organizations, what they're doing now is going local. They're basically taking a world tour and going to the regions. The leaders are going there and with their teams and holding these sessions, ideation and planning sessions, to really ensure that they tap into the local knowledge of their teams.
I love the word glocal.
Local. Still a very important term.
Yeah.
To have that global reach, for everybody to understand the global vision, but you also the local touch and connection.
Right.
You still need to pay attention to that today more than ever. And that brings us to dialogue, the second success lever, looking at how to create inclusive dialogue and promoting knowledge sharing and cross-cultural learning throughout the global project. And start with a look at knowledge sharing across cultures, because we have often pay attention to differences in cultures, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of time zones, in terms of hierarchy, in terms of relationship versus task. But there's not that much knowledge or research around knowledge sharing across cultures. And what I've found in my studies is that in creating new ideas and initiating new ideas and sharing knowledge, there are differences across cultures. And some of those elements that we need to think about are structure, what I call the ideas hierarchy in a sense. So what is the structure for communicating ideas, the communication context in different cultures and how we share ideas? And often that sometimes depends on a team leader who is considered the communicator of ideas. Sometimes it's up to the team to be able to share those ideas. So you have to look at how that plays out across cultures. For example, in the US, it's very common for teams openly at all levels to collaborate and do brainstorming out loud, so to speak, or and really communicate those ideas. Whereas in Asia, I often found in many countries where the team leader, and especially in China too, the team leader is expected to be the one who communicates that idea or final idea. So we have to look at the ideas hierarchy or structure. There's power, how power is considered in terms of the knowledge. Shared knowledge, is that encouraged for the better of the team, or should it be only certain people hold specific knowledge or expertise? And so that varies across cultures. And then we look at openness and building on ideas. This is very important for ideation. The sense of, in North America, I found, in some parts of Europe, Northern Europe too, is more that sense of, oh, we need to challenge each other on the ideas and really, attack or criticize for the, to find the better idea. Whereas in other parts of Europe, I find there's more need for dialogue and evaluating, discussing those ideas. And in parts of Asia also, that's the importance of saving face. It's not considered a positive approach to really attack or criticize, but more to present ideas in a more informal way, or where it will not embarrass somebody. So the idea here is to build on ideas, for everyone, no matter what culture they're from, is to build on those ideas, and so that everybody's voice is heard. And we look at initiative. How is that considered across cultures? It goes into risk as well, but is initiative, entrepreneurial initiative, really supported or recognized? And then finally, response, the feedback process. When somebody presents that idea, how do leaders provide feedback and encourage that idea to be developed? So I share more details in the book, stories and examples of how this plays out. And if we look at today's world in terms of the digital platform or the digital network, what I'm seeing here, what's important in order to create a truly global network that's inclusive is to really optimize those knowledge platforms, that internal platforms where you can use social network, you can connect with your colleagues around the world, and then from there, move into cross-cultural learning, peer learning, learn from what is happening in their markets and their perspectives, and through knowledge sharing. So really promoting knowledge sharing throughout the organization, from global to local, from local to global. It needs to be both ways. And so technology needs to address that, and leaders need to be knowledge facilitators to ensure those conversations happen through an effective platform, building in interactive workflows and communication throughout the project. Collaborative tools are there for instant communication, and as well as live forums and communities, and you can have spontaneous sharing through pop-up meetings.
I think. I think that throughout this whole coronavirus thing that we're experiencing right now, I think the communication has been really good and really powerful, because people have been spreading or sharing, I should say, good information and throughout social media and an email form. Of course, there's always the few that like to spread fake news, but I think overall it's been really positive, don't you?
Yes. Yeah. This has been very positive, and it's nice to see how people have mobilized, and from organizations to government to schools, and in order to ensure that everyone's connected,
yep.
Nationally and internationally. Yeah. And so what is important throughout all of this is really the power of dialogue. And it sounds very simple, but what I found is that the leaders really need to pay attention to this with their teams, and even within teams, the cross-cultural and cross-functional teams, is to look at how we listen, how to listen to the team in terms of active listening and inviting conversation, inviting them to really share their ideas or their knowledge, and looking at what may be their needs so that they can be supported, and then responding, not just listening, but responding. Then based on what you've learned, how do you respond to those teams to help them develop their initiatives and to be recognized for their work and what they do. And that creates inclusive dialogue. And there's a very nice story that I remember from my research, and I'll share in the field. And I was in Asia and interviewing team leaders, regional team leaders. And there was one team leader in Vietnam who was working for the local subsidiary of a multinational firm. And shared with me, I said, well, what would be important, for what is most important for you to feel valued within this global project? And he said, it would really be about recognition. If I could create value in my market as well as be recognized within my global team, that would be the biggest reward, to my voice is heard and that I'm recognized and for what I do for my own market as well as for the world or for the global team. So it shows the power of dialogue. And I heard this consistently through my research that it's so important to listen and ensure everybody's voice is heard.
Because we don't all want to be rewarded the same way, right?
Right. Yeah. And but what seems to be very consistent is to be recognized and have your voice heard, and that's where I think leaders and really need to pay attention to ensuring local voices are heard. And so that brings us to space, the final lever, and looking at how to create an inclusive space and developing a global innovation culture and team climate. We'll look at global innovation culture and climate in terms of the 3 values that I found were consistently important for successful organizations and multinational firms. And this was our cultural empathy, creativity, and collaboration. So for cultural empathy, very important there that organizations placed an emphasis or priority on cultural diversity, and that their teams around the world were made up of members from across cultures, from across functions, so very diverse, and a big emphasis on global teamwork. And the second value on creativity, ensuring that these organizations made time for creativity and encouraged initiative on local levels as well from any team member around the world. And to really promote innovative thinking. And the third value, collaboration, really focused on organizations that made a great effort to be transparent around the world and ensure that the teams' voices were heard, that they could share knowledge throughout the global project, and also that they understood what was happening, because there's a big frustration for certain teams that they felt their leaders didn't always communicate everything, or was this headquarter versus subsidiary, where headquarters felt that, well, we know the strategy and we know about the concept, this is information we should keep to ourselves, and local teams only need to know about the other aspects of the plan. So ensuring everything is transparent and that you have that exchange. And that creates a team climate that's responsive, that's transparent, that truly shows an entrepreneurial spirit, promotes it, and again, really brings out or ensures execution success.
I really like the entrepreneurial aspect of that. We had a situation here in Detroit, Michigan, with the coronavirus. The mayor, the bus drivers didn't want to drive. They were worried about their health, and so they were threatening to not show up to work, and the mayor came out and he said, we have a problem here, and he brought people together to solve the problem, and the end result was they made all the buses free for everyone, so people didn't have to go up front and put their money in, and people could enter from either door on the bus. So they really, thought kind of in very creative ways, and he brought all voices together to solve this problem, and it was solved like within a day. And then people could ride the bus to go to work and, things that they needed to do. So I just think we're going to need so much more of that going forward.
Yeah, it's amazing what we can do when we bring together the creativity of everyone, the collective wisdom of everyone. It's and in that sense, to develop such a global innovation culture, then you need to look at the cultural drivers. I share this in the book as well. So more details around the importance of international mobility, even though it's difficult to be mobile these days, in the future, to ensure that there are there's travel and trips and exchanges between teams. And also shared workspace, both digital as well as live, ensuring that there's those ideation collaboration opportunities, collaboration tools that make a difference, the digital tools that can promote that sharing and ideation online.
Like Zoom?
Yes, Zoom is great. Zoom even has a whiteboard, and and there are other tools like Mural, and we have a lot available today. So it's really about selecting the right tools for collaboration, and then of course the global project process, ensuring that you really pay attention to inclusion for cross-cultural and cross-functional teams, and that leads to multicultural mindset. So not thinking I would say not emphasizing global mindset, but looking at multicultural mindset, thinking of how do I appeal to my teams around the world, or multicultural perspectives. So that brings us to looking at how do leaders and teams today can facilitate global innovation by moving through these phases, and continues as they're launching initiatives around the world, looking at how to move through concept creation to strategic planning, to validate that concept and strategy, go to market, and ensure performance success. And that's really about the success levers of vision, dialogue, and space.
I love it.
A few examples, just very quickly. You have many cases in the book, and I'll point out a few on how this takes place. And very quickly, Philips is one organization that has impressed me greatly. Philips is a multinational firm based in the Netherlands, although they say they're a global organization. They don't believe in headquarters, but they have, sell lifestyle, everything from lifestyle products, health care, to lighting products around the world. And Philips has a very interesting program where their leaders are trained in design thinking. So leaders have their own internal methodology, and leaders learn design thinking and strategic co-creation, and they are required or asked to use the method for any new initiative. And so they'll take their world tour, they'll go out to the regions and visit with teams and conduct these sessions, co-creation sessions, where local and regional teams can give their input and feedback, and they develop concepts that truly speak to those markets, to those international markets. Another organization is very interesting is Airbnb. They use local customer stories to keep the teams around the world and the leaders informed of what they need to think about for those markets. So they have a way of sharing that continuously, of local customer stories, success stories, as well as their needs, so that it's at the forefront when they're developing new programs and services. And Adobe is another organization that's very interesting. They emphasize collaboration, and naturally they have those online collaboration tools. They can use tools or software, and have used that in a way to promote collaboration online as well as live, going out to the regions and then bringing that online for very effective collaboration around the world. And Essilor, based here in Paris, is an organization that specializes in optics, or everything from lenses or looking at solutions for ophthalmology, and they have been very successful in emphasizing that front end for strategic planning, going out to the regions and engaging them, integrating that knowledge to ensure a sound strategy. And this has been a great emphasis for them to have that local connection. If we look at, so that's dialogue. We looked a bit of vision and dialogue and ensuring more knowledge sharing and learning. If we go to space and looking more closely at innovation culture, you have Lenovo, which is an organization that really has blended both Eastern and Western cultures, and they truly see themselves as a global innovation culture, and have promoted that team leaders in any area of the world can lead a global initiative, and they truly give them the resources and support to do that, and then highly collaborative organization. And then we have Siemens, which you find in the book too, a detailed case study, and they have explored and presented very interesting ways of creating a team climate and engaging the teams in meetings and sessions, and having them share their own learning via YouTube clips and through the collaborative platform. So really to learn from each other and what's happening around the world. And then we have Wipro, which I'm fascinated by. It's a multinational firm based in India, and they really see themselves as an innovation partner to organizations, and they have developed, it's a services firm that's developed a number of platforms for ideation and collaboration that they bring to their clients. One of their practices that I find very interesting is called the 24-hour pod, so an ideation pod. And so what Wipro will do is really capture the collective intelligence of their teams around the world. So for 24 hours, they will invite their teams to address a wicked challenge, or and they'll have 24 hours to ideate and develop solutions, and they will move through the world. And so benefit from the time zones, starts India and Asia, and move through Europe and Middle East, Africa, and then North America and South America. And so as the sun rises and sets, and by the end of the 24 hours, they've come up with some really cool solutions that they can present for clients. And
that is a great model.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated by it, and I think this is something that can be explored and optimized further. And then you have Cisco. You'll see that in an interesting case on how they've transformed, also moved more from global to local and local to global. So many cases and many tips and guidelines for you to enjoy in the book. And for the opportunity to share insights and wishing you a bon voyage on your own journeys. And you have Leading Global Innovation there, and the link, you can find it via Amazon or my publisher Springer and Palgrave. And there's also readiness tests. So for those of you who want to check out your readiness, your global readiness score, we can send that link too. And so you can test out if you're ready to go to launch your global initiative.
I want to take the test.
Yes. Well, then you're going to have to tell me your score.
Well, okay, I promise I will. Oh, awesome. Just a couple of comments from the book. Well, first of all, I love the cases, and I love that, a lot of times cases are like 50 pages long, right? And you're just like, you get so far and you're like, okay, I can't fall asleep, right? And your pages are like, or your cases are like, 1, 2, and 3 pages long. So, I mean, you can really, get to the point. And then of course you add links if people want to go further and do more research, but I really like that. One of your, on communication, it says another colleague working on a different product line added, my experience with teams in India and China show that yes and no can have different meanings, and you need to know how to translate. And I think that that's something that a lot of us here in America are not as used to. And I teach world business communication, and we just did a case on in Thailand sometimes they're called the land of 1,000 smiles, because different smiles mean different things, right? And so
Yeah.
I think that's something that people have to really pay attention to when working in a global team.
Yeah, I even heard there's an angry smile in Thailand, so you have to be careful.
And in America, we're just so, I don't know, bold, brash, I mean, we just say whatever is on our mind. And I think some cultures are just so much more respectful. And, but that's something, you really have to stay in tune with.
Yeah, I'm paying attention and listening, and I'm really being sensitive to differences in how we communicate, body language, facial expressions, and even how we use our words.
It's so important. Another thing I really liked is with the Adobe case, you talk about global and local team development through cross-cultural learning. And I think you say team members can immerse themselves in the local culture through 3 to 6 month rotations, where opportunities are created and sharing for cross-cultural knowledge. And I think, wow, if more companies did that, that would just be so great. Because really, you do have to immerse yourself in a different culture to really understand it. So that is just so cool. And then exchanges or extended country visits to enable learning and understanding from local team members in the business environment. So did they do a lot of that in some of the cases that you looked at?
Not as many, and I like you, I really hope to see that more companies will employ that practice. I see that they're in management training programs. There are quite a few companies, consulting firms, as well as some multinational firms that will ensure younger managers have that rotation, that they can spend 3 months in 2 or 3 countries or different regions, which I think is a wonderful start. Mm-hmm. However, I think it would also be beneficial for team leaders to, as well as team members, to have those exchanges. Yeah. And whether they're 2 months or 6 months or a year, it could still benefit them because they'll have that immersion, as you said, and they'll understand perspectives of their team members.
I was going to ask you what your favorite case was, but that would be kind of difficult, right?
Yes. And each case has its own strength. It's what I found that, as I shared, and you probably could see that each organization had a particular strength.
Right.
I haven't found the perfect organization yet, but I think that's really maybe not what we're striving for, but maybe striving for an organization that has that multicultural empathy. Okay. And an organization that truly believes in a global innovation culture that's inclusive, where we can tap into the collective intelligence of the teams around the world and their voices are heard. That for me would be really what we could aim for in the future, and for leaders and their teams to ensure that success for their organizations.
That's awesome. We have this coronavirus world right now and quarantining. Is there anything related to the book that you think we're doing well? We're doing well in this new world we're living with?
I am impressed, or I like the fact that there has been a worldwide collaboration. I think we see that with governments who are communicating and helping each other throughout this, communicating in terms of their practices and how those can be transferred to other countries, and how they can help them by shipping more supplies. So I think there has been a good display of collaboration and helping different countries. And I'm seeing that with organizations too. They're really responding rapidly and supporting their employees to adjust to this, home stay and working online.
Right.
So it's nice to see that empathy, and I think it's showing the best part of us as humans today, and probably giving us a lot to think about in terms of how we want to move forward too, and to develop more connections and collaborate and create new solutions together. You know?
Yeah, I really. I don't like that, you know, it was something like this that brought us together, but I just really feel that collaborative spirit these days in my neighborhood, and, you know, in my community. I mean, wherever I go, I mean, people are just really nice to each other. And it's unfortunate that it took something like this to do it, more so, but it's great to see. Sylvain, I hope I said the name right. Sylvain said, merci beaucoup to both of you. It's kind of, did I say it right?
C'est un plaisir.
It's kind of a refreshing mindset that Karina is teaching today. I've had time to read the book. He received the book just before lockdown, so. So that is awesome. And I highly recommend your book. It is a great read, and it's just packed with wonderful examples of the good things to do, and how we can move forward to international market success. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to share my thoughts and on the book, and I wish you and everyone a very interesting and exciting global journey ahead, and may you all stay safe and connected throughout our current situation, and let's look forward to a better world. Yes. To making more, creating more collaborative opportunities.
Absolutely. And I will send a link out to everyone. It might take me a couple days to get this recording, but I will send a link out to everybody who registered, because I know we had a little issue yesterday with the 2 different Zoom rooms. And I'll also, if it's all right with you, I'll send the test out to everyone. Okay. So yeah, that little that test so that I can assess.
Oh, yeah.
So
the
I can
readiness quiz. Yeah, figure out your readiness score. I'll make sure to have those links.
That would be great. So awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Grand merci, everyone, and to Kim, thank you again.
All right. And we'll be in touch.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.